welcome to the 2011 initiation of those who have been elected membership into the Phi Beta Kappa Society, the oldest and most prestigious honor society in the United States. We hope you enjoyed the procession, the music. The faculty board argued for Lady Gaga, but the students insisted on something more honorific and traditional. My name is Robin Romans. I'm Associate Provost at USC, and it's my pleasure, my honor to be President of Phi Beta Kappa Epsilon Chapter of California, which is a long title that basically means that the USC chapter is the 5th oldest in the state of California, Epsilon being the 5th letter of the Greek alphabet. It's wonderful to see such a large audience of family, friends, and faculty in support of the students who will be inducted later this afternoon. The students you support and honor today have reached academic excellence in the liberal arts and sciences. They will be joining a society that represents a high calling in the life of the mind, a society that holds as a hallmark free inquiry, accomplishment, and civic responsibility, and a society whose members are dedicated to the values of liberal learning in the arts and sciences. Students, as initiates into the USC chapter of Phi Beta Kappa, you follow past initiates who represent some of the most distinguished leaders in the city, the state, and our country. You join a tradition that is more than 3/4 of a century old at USC and 230 years old in the society as a whole. It's a tradition of respecting and fostering the life of the mind and the breadth and rigor of intellectual inquiry and discussion. It's a tradition that values living life with attention, with self-awareness and an understanding of others as human beings and members of society. And finally, it's a tradition of striving through the best of our minds and our skills to make the world a place where each individual can realize his or her full human potential. All of these things are what the liberal arts are about, and you are now in a position to perpetuate and extend that tradition into the future through your actions and interactions with others. Out of an exceptionally talented student body, you've distinguished yourselves by your achievements and your promise for the future. For that, you deserve a round of applause. Such a smart audience. Now I'd like to make a few introductions. First, it's my pleasure to introduce members of the executive board of Phi Beta Kappa Epsilon of California. Dr. Susan Montgomery, who's in the front row here, serves as secretary of our chapter and is professor of mathematics. Dr. Greg Thalman, former president of Phi Beta Kappa and professor of classics and chair of comparative literature. And those who are not able to join us today, Dr. Arnold Dunn, professor of biological sciences, and Dr. Rebecca Lemon, professor of English. I'd also like to recognize our keynote speaker, Dean of the USC Dana and David Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, Howard Gillman. Up he says, let me say it's appropriate to applaud him because USC Dornsife has graciously underwritten the expenses of today's event and through the generosity of the USC Dornsife community have also sponsored the initiation fees for this year's class of inductees. So thank you very much, Dean Gillman. And I might mention that's been a long relationship, and we're very appreciative of that. I also want to recognize the leaders of the USC Dornsife Events Office, the people who have organized this event to run so effectively, efficiently, and beautifully, elegantly. Cynthia Gellis, where is Cynthia? There she is, okay, and Sonia Van Hoof, who must be quite close to her somewhere or working behind the scenes, for their wonderful support and for this gathering today. And I also want to recognize and give special thanks to Mary Gerlitz, who is the executive liaison for Phi Beta Kappa, works very closely with the faculty board in making everything that goes on today possible. Also joining us today is USC Dornsife Board of Counselor members, Richard Flores and Jerry Papazian. They're in the front row here, if you mind kind of standing. Thank you. We are delighted for all the guests that we have here. We are also delighted that we have several Phi Beta Kappa alumni with us today. Some perhaps may be parents of today's inductees. Other guests, members of the faculty, staff, and administration of the university. We thank you also for participating in this celebration and reconnecting with the chapter. You serve as models of excellence for the USC community and especially our current inductees. Would you please stand so we can just see you for a moment, those of you who are here? And we offer our applause. Thank you. Now, I would like to present Susan Montgomery, my friend and colleague, who will give a brief history of Phi Beta Kappa from a mathematician's perspective. So that should be interesting.
I'm very happy to see everyone here today, and there's nothing mathematical about my presentation. This is Robin's little joke. Phi Beta Kappa is really a pre-revolutionary society, so it's very old in the history of our country. It was actually founded in 1776 by students at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. And the College of William and Mary is the oldest college in the South. And the students first met in the Raleigh Tavern, which has been rebuilt in colonial Williamsburg, if anyone here has visited there. So it was an important gathering spot. William and Mary then became important in the Revolution because many Revolutionary War figures from the South had attended there. Although it started there in Williamsburg, in 1779, they agreed to start some other chapters, and one was started at Yale in 1780 and Harvard 1781. And as it turned out, it was a very good thing they did this, because at the end of 1781, the British occupied the area. General Cornwallis, in fact, this is one of the main last stands of the Revolutionary War. So the college closed, and Phi Beta Kappa only survived because it had these northern chapters. In fact, because the college closed down. When the college did reopen, the Phi Beta Kappa didn't start up again, and it wasn't recolonized until later. It was just lucky. Now, one other chapter was added in the 1700s, which was Dartmouth in 1787. Originally, the society was both literary and social, and a secret society like many others that were founded at the time. However, in the 1830s, there was a lot of anti-Masonic, anti-secrecy agitation. So Phi Beta Kappa became an open society, and they also wanted to contrast themselves with the purely social fraternities that existed at the time and become more academic and literary. And also even then, a lot of alumni were involved in discussions and programs and debates. Now, of course, this being the time, you're probably not surprised to know that this was young white male students. I have to say this, but they did begin to diversify eventually. African Americans were admitted at Yale in 1874 and Vermont in 1877, and women were admitted at Vermont in 1875 and at Connecticut Wesleyan in 1876. So since the mid-1870s, it's been open to everyone. So otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here. Okay. Okay, now the first Phi Beta Kappa chapter in California was, it was at Berkeley, but that's all right. So as Robin mentioned, we were Epsilon of California, the fifth one founded since 1929, so this is now 82 years if I subtract correctly. See, there's a little bit of mathematics in here. The motto of the society, the name Phi Beta Kappa comes from its Greek motto, Philosophia Biou Kubernetes. And Professor Thalman, who's professor of classics, can say that again for you when he gets his turn. But basically it means love of learning is the helmsman of life, or that your life is guided by the love of learning. And the symbol that some people wear, the Phi Beta Kappa key, is very similar to the original medal from William and Mary. So this basically is my old history of Phi Beta Kappa, but I wanted to go a little bit into the future. There are alumni chapters, alumni activities, and at least in the LA area. I remember one event when we all toured the new cathedral downtown, and we saw some of the manuscripts in the collection Gutenberg, pages from a Gutenberg Bible in the collection of the Archdiocese. And then, of course, we had lunch. There's always food involved. And they've done other activities like this. Also, there are publications. Everyone gets free little key reporter, but Phi Beta Kappa is a scholarly society. It publishes the American Scholar, to which you have to subscribe. I'm happy to show the issues to everyone later. There are articles on history, literature, occasionally science, and things like this. And finally, also, they give fellowships for graduate school, not very many. And so naturally, they're going to ask you to give money, but probably not surprised at this if you've been at USC for a while. Okay, so that's, in any event, so just to say that it's an organization with a history, with a long history, and also it extends into the future, so if you want to be involved as an alum, it's appreciated. Okay, so next, I wanted to introduce Professor Thalman, who will introduce our speaker.
Well, good afternoon, and like Susan, I'd like to welcome you all and also say a really hearty congratulations to the student inductees today. It's my privilege and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dean Howard Gillman, who is Dean of the USC Dana and David Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. He holds the Anna H. Bing Dean's Chair, and he's Professor of Political Science, History, and Law. Now, I have a little late-breaking news about him, something I just discovered this morning. He told me that he really doesn't like long introductions, and that put me on the spot because I'd already prepared some remarks. But I think I will try to meet him halfway and really curtail my remarks. So, I am not going to tell you that he is a nationally recognized expert on constitutional studies and judicial politics. I'm not going to mention his 4 sole-authored or co-authored books, and I won't tell you that the first one won a very big prize with the American Political Science Association, or that his most recent book is The Votes That Counted, How the Court Decided the 2000 Presidential Election. And I'm certainly not going to mention his 25 book chapters and articles in addition to all that. Nor that he has been recognized within USC as an outstanding, dedicated, and memorable teacher. I'm just not going to mention that stuff. The General Education Teaching Award, the USC Associates Award in Teaching, which is the highest teaching award given at the university. And finally, I won't tell you about all his many contributions to the university in the area of teaching, including the fact that he was, before becoming dean, associate vice provost for the research advancement in the social sciences. Those are all facts you can get anyway from the websites of the college and the political science department, so there's no point in mentioning them. But I do want to say something about him that you can't get from that website and that is really hard to capture in lists of accomplishments anyway. But it's something that is especially relevant to this occasion, and I'm almost finished, by the way. Dean Gillman is a tireless and eloquent advocate for the value of the liberal arts. And within the college, he sets stringent standards of excellence in research and teaching. During this year, I've had the privilege of working with him a bit on College Commons, and I've seen at first hand his dedication to ideals of academic community and the exchange of ideas, and his devotion to finding ways to help our students share in the rich joys and excitement offered by studies in the liberal arts. I can think of no one more appropriate to address us as we celebrate the accomplishments of some of our most wonderful students.
Thank you, Greg. I tried. It is a tremendous honor to be here today. I know we live in an era where we're inclined to treat special occasions with ironic detachment. So I hope that those of you who are being initiated today will allow yourself a pre-ironic moment for a second and appreciate what this moment represents, the meaning of this gathering. To be selected for membership in Phi Beta Kappa is an extraordinary accomplishment. You have achieved one of the most prestigious academic honors that can be bestowed on a college graduate. Only the most outstanding arts and sciences students are invited to join the society. And as you well know, it is a hard-earned accomplishment. It was forged over many years, week in and week out, in scores of classes, hundreds of assignments, testing your willingness to seriously engage the best that has ever been thought or created or discovered. Great institutions of higher education, like USC, are built on the hope that remarkable, talented, ambitious students will immerse themselves fully in this world of inquiry and discovery, where achievement arises not from strength or speed, but from curiosity and critical reflection and systematic investigation, analytic rigor, and clarity of expression. When I speak to incoming students and their families, what I am imploring them to do is to take full advantage of the precious opportunity that is presented by spending these 4 years amidst the company of men and women who have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of knowledge. And you have taken full advantage of that opportunity. And so, on behalf of every faculty member at the University of Southern California, I have to first say congratulations, of course, but more importantly, I really have to say thank you. Thank you so very much. It has been an honor and a privilege to share our passions and whatever insights we can muster up with you. We know that these years that you've spent immersed in our community are going to serve you well throughout your life. So, Phi Beta Kappa, love of learning is the guide to life. Love of learning is the guide to life. This, in fact, is what we all hope you have learned above all else. In fact, if you haven't learned this, most of what you have learned doesn't really matter so much. Love of learning is the guide to life. Your commitment to this article of faith, by the way, is the final requirement for you to be initiated into Phi Beta Kappa. Before you join any club, you need to know what the motto is, and you need to feel comfortable associating yourself with that motto. So love of learning is the guide to life. It's an easy sentiment to embrace. It's been repeated often in many different forms. One of my favorite philosophers, John Dewey, once wrote, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." And I think that that's a similar sentiment. And so it's in this frame of mind, with this idea in mind, you will be, throughout your life, able to continue to grow, to expand your horizons, to find new passions, to adapt to changing circumstances. Otherwise, you are not living life. Education is not preparation for life. It is life itself. So I'm assuming that this one big thing that we hope you've learned these last 4 years is something that you've embraced. You know now that you have to be a lifelong learner. It's not as if learning in college is a thing you do in a few years and you cross it off your list. We're training you to understand the questions that are worth your serious attention, are worth prolonged engagement throughout your life. So with that in mind, I want to take a few minutes and give you some gratuitous advice about how you might approach this lifelong journey. This is the season of gratuitous advice, right? The risk, of course, is that we all sound like Polonius, when we start to offer it. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, to your own self be true. I'll see if I can avoid the Polonius fallacy. But to give you this advice, I first need to say a few words about foxes and hedgehogs. Foxes and hedgehogs. Is anyone familiar with these terms in the way that you think I'm about ready to talk about them? Not in sort of the physical sense in which, by any measure, I would unfortunately be a hedgehog, but in the way in which it is describing different sorts of people, which is the only way in which maybe I could possibly be a fox. Have you heard of this distinction? Some of you have, and so that's going to be verification for what I'm about to tell you, is a very important set of concepts that have come to life over the last few decades in sort of the cultural life of the United States. The concept of foxes and hedgehogs arises in this little essay written by one of the great philosophers of the 20th century. His name's Isaiah Berlin. And in 1953, he wrote this little essay. The essay is called The Hedgehog and the Fox. It turned out to be way more influential than he could have possibly imagined. Here are the first few sentences of the essay, and then I'll sort of elaborate the concept. It's just a few sentences. There is a line among the fragments of the Greek poet Archilochus which says, "The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing." The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Berlin goes on to say, taken figuratively, the words mark one of the deepest differences which divide writers and thinkers, and it may be human beings in general. Provocative? That these were, okay, interested in more, right? Okay. For there exists, he says, a great chasm between those on one side who relate everything to a single central vision in terms of which they understand, think, and feel, and on the other side, those who pursue many ends, often unrelated, even contradictory, related by no single overarching moral or aesthetic principle. Okay, so that's all the quoting from Berlin. Let me sort of tease out this concept a bit. Basically, he's saying there's two types of people. There are people who are kind of grand theorists, dogmatists, ideologues, hedgehogs. They know one big thing. And then, there's people that are kind of more loosey-goosey thinkers, pluralistic. They're kind of diverse in their thinking. That's sort of on the one hand, on the other hand, a little pragmatic. Those are the foxes. The hedgehog knows one big thing. The foxes know many things. Now, Berlin knew that this scheme is an oversimplification. You're probably not all one thing or all the other thing. But he thought it was an interesting starting point for an investigation. Now, it turns out that this little essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, was actually written as a discussion of Tolstoy's final chapter in War and Peace, which you all know is the second greatest novel ever written. We'll talk about the first greatest novel later if you like. And so he wanted to illuminate Tolstoy's theory of history, and whether Tolstoy was a hedgehog or a fox, whether he was an ideologue with a big grand theme of history, or whether the details of War and Peace show that life is much more complicated. It deconstructs any effort to have any sweeping vision of things. And so that's where he wanted to go. But over the last 50 years, historians, philosophers, sociologists, psychologists, political scientists have found this clever little distinction, making people either a hedgehog or a fox, a very useful dichotomy in discussing a broad range of topics. Once, by the way, you leave this session today, you're going to begin to see a lot of commentators in a lot of unusual places talking about hedgehogs and foxes, so you're welcome, right? This is going to be useful for you. So let's just take a second. Are you a hedgehog or a fox? As a starting point, if you're thinking about your own way of thinking about the world and learning about the world, you might ask yourself, are you generally attracted to grand theorizing, or do you like the messiness of multiple perspectives, even if it makes you feel a little less confident? Is your style of argumentation bold and confident around a small number of fixed axioms? Or are you a, maybe on the one hand, but then again on the other hand sort of person? In making choices of what you like to study, do you like to burrow deeper and deeper and deeper into one view that is constantly being reinforced, whether it's accounting or physics or feminist theory? Or do you yearn to have your worldview challenged and upset and torn asunder by new ways of thinking? My guess is that we're all a little bit of both, but some people are a little bit more on the one side than on the other. So, why is this important? Well, there's no doubt that some of the most important thinkers in world history have been hedgehogs. Right? These are the folks who are committed to creating and defending big, sweeping, new theories, totalizing theories of society and science. Think, for example, Freud and the unconscious, Darwin and natural selection, Marx and class struggle, Einstein and relativity, Adam Smith and the division of labor, Catherine McKinnon, the structure of gender relations. All of these folks are trying to convince you that you can simplify life, and the power of that vision reforms everything that you see. Everything you feel or think is being brought into this vision. They took a complex world, they simplified it, they showed how much can be explained by big ideas. We're clearly capable of seeing everything through the prism of big ideas that capture our imaginations. More than that, we're suckers for it. We're suckers for big visions, totalizing systems, dogmatisms, ideologies, conspiracy theories. We are a pattern-seeking species, and we're comforted when a big idea pulls everything together. Moreover, loud, aggressive hedgehogs always sound really confident and very impressive. In fact, they're a staple of cable news, right? Men and women who hold predictable opinions on every topic repeat bold pronouncements over and over and over again. But here's the thing, and sort of the gratuitous advice. There appears to be an inverse relationship between being an aggressive hedgehog and, well, being right about stuff most of the time. If you'll pardon the sports metaphor, hedgehogs occasionally hit big home runs, but day in and day out, they tend to strike out a lot. And we know this a little bit, at least in the area of public commentary about a wide range of social and historical events, because of a book that was written a couple of years ago by a scholar by the name of Philip Tetlock. He wrote a book entitled Expert Political Judgment. This is what the guy had the gall to do. Over 2 decades, he tracked 82,000 predictions made by almost 300 experts in a variety of public fora. The experts' forecasts were tracked both in terms of them expressing expert opinion on things they were supposed to be experts about, them expressing experts' opinion about things that they didn't supposed to be experts about, conservatives expressing opinions, liberals expressing opinions. You collected a whole bunch of data over 20 years. And so here are the results. At the highest level, the results are kind of, maybe interesting and amusing. For all of the effort within sort of the cable news industrial complex, where so much is about pulling experts in to fill 24 hours day in and day out, it turns out that on average, all of the predictions of experts were basically no more statistically reliable than random guesses would have been. So with all those experts, it's basically the equivalent of chimpanzees throwing darts at a board. However, this overall average of randomness disguises a very important relationship, which is the following. The people who did the worst are the most famous experts, the ones you see the most, the ones who actually show up most of the time on television are the worst at predicting what's going on. The most heavily utilized experts did worse than random. Champies throwing darts are better, more reliable guides to what's going to happen in the world than the people you see the most on television telling you what's going to be happening, especially in a complicated world. And what's true about the most famous experts? They're hedgehogs. Why? Talent bookers for television shows, reporters tend to call up experts who have strong, coherent, familiar points of view, who see things in black and white, who shout a lot, who are reliable. You know what you're going to get when you bring this person in. Television loves hedgehogs. By contrast, experts who are more like foxes, that is, when you ask them to state an opinion, it's, well, you know, it's very complicated and, you know, it's a difficult situation and there's this history and you're not paying attention to the difference between this group and that group, who are being pragmatic. They're kind of prone to self-doubt. I'm really not sure one way or the other how things are go. I think it's more likely this way or that way. They're much worse at getting good television sound bites on the air, but they're far more likely to get things right. Most of Tetlock's findings were negative. Conservatives do no better and no worse than liberals at making predictions. Optimists do no better or no worse than pessimists at making predictions. Only one pattern emerges consistently, quote, how you think matters more than what you think. How you think matters more than what you think. Experts who always have one big idea, whose goal is not to let the story situation form their judgment, but who use situations to reproduce what they already think is true, those people always get beaten by folks who use more diverse information, who are willing to look deeply at complicated situations, who are more comfortable with complexity and uncertainty. Tetlock's bottom line: the political expert who bores you with a cloud of howevers is probably right about what's going to happen. The charismatic expert who exudes confidence and has a great story to tell is probably wrong. How you think is more important than what you think. So I think this is a life lesson, but before giving you my final 2 cents about maybe what its life lesson means for you, I'm also a bit reassured to tell you that this lesson is getting traction among some important groups of professionals. Forbes reported just a few weeks ago that a branch of the intelligence community known as the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity is funding a major new research project on how to improve assessments and predictions of events in the real world based on Tetlock's research. If you find it slightly encouraging that the intelligence community thinks it's a good idea to hire a few more dogmatists, fewer dogmatists, and more experts in actual countries and people, then you get the idea of where I'm going with this observation. So, what does it mean for you? Obviously, if your goal in life is to be booked on cable television, then, you know, become a hedgehog is one recommendation that I can offer. You'll be fine. Especially so long as cable news books experts without any regard to their record of performance as prognosticators. But more seriously, by all means, delve deeply into ideas and experiences that you become passionate about. Soak up powerful ways of thinking, exciting new ideas. For me, the past few years, it's, as some of my colleagues know, it's been Russian literature. I spent 45 years in life not caring so much. Now I can't get enough of it. The last few weeks, I've learned about Shostakovich. I never knew anything about Shostakovich before. 20th century Russian composer. And I've heard about his Fifth Symphony. I just heard about it in passing. It was composed under the threat of Stalin's Great Terror. It is subtitled A Soviet Artist's Practical Creative Reply to Just Criticism, because he was worried that Stalin was unhappy with his Fourth Symphony. And he was worried that he needed to prove that he could be a good Soviet citizen, but he was also a great artist. And so you listen to the Fifth Symphony, and it is a piece of music that is an enduring testament to our yearning to be free, but also an enduring testament to the fact that sometimes we live in all too tragic circumstances. Shostakovich simultaneously capitulates and does not capitulate to power. When you find these moments of life force, sink into those moments. Life is about learning all the time. But by all means, when you find your passions and get excited about new ideas, always keep in mind the values of a scholarly community. where the excitement of new discovery always sits happily alongside ongoing skepticism, where we're happy to upset received truths just as we're happy to defend ancient truths, but as the situation calls for. It's not a virtue to stay burrowed in one familiar spot. Love of learning is the guide of life. You cannot learn if your goal is merely to reinforce your existing views and reproduce your existing passions. Allow yourself to adapt to a changing world. Remain open-minded to new evidence and experiences. Assess complicated situations with an appreciation of nuance. Engage questions that do not lend themselves to easy answers. In other words, nurture your inner fox more than your inner hedgehog. And then again, by being here, you're already ahead of the game, because being initiated into Phi Beta Kappa makes you a real fox. Thank you very much.
Let me just get to my page here. But let me say also, I stand before you as both fox and hedgehog myself. I've recognized for a long time the hedgehog interest or aspect of my own life is I do believe all good desserts and all good meals end with dessert, so there's the hedgehog in me. But I'm a fox also. I will, from time to time, have different kinds of Ben and Jerry's, and sometimes start dinner with dessert, so fox. But we appreciate your comments and your thoughts. I don't mean to minimize them at all, because I think what's really important there is that idea that what you're prepared for is to deal with uncertainty and deal with ambiguity in life and complexity, and I think those are really values that part of your 4 years have been to understand there aren't easy answers. There aren't just two sides to any story. There are multiple voices and sides. So thank you, Dean Gillman. Today I want to recognize two members of the USC chapter of Phi Beta Kappa who were inducted last year and were presented this year with an award from Phi Beta Kappa and recognized earlier this week on Wednesday evening at the honors convocation before the president, much of the senior administration, and faculty. And that is a Phi Beta Kappa undergraduate award. First, Jacob Bongers, who unfortunately is in a group project, so late this afternoon he was not able to join us, was elected to Phi Beta Kappa as a junior. He's a senior majoring in interdisciplinary archaeology with minors in cultural anthropology and video game design. He has maintained a cumulative grade point average of 3.97. I think I just violated the FERPA rule. Jacob received various awards, including trustee scholarship, and was inducted into numerous honor societies in addition to Phi Beta Kappa. Alongside his studies, he engaged in many research projects as well, including an analysis of European glass and ceramic bottles, the fragments of which he found in the valleys of Chile. With the guidance of faculty mentors, he presented a paper at the National Congress of Chilean Archaeology. And he has received several fellowships to fund this kind of research, including one from the Provost Undergraduate Research Fellowship Fund. Jacob is also a Mellon Mays Scholar and won the Interdisciplinary Prize for his submission in the 2008 Provost Undergraduate Research Symposium, a major event we have every year in the spring at USC. For his academic achievement, his commitment to research, and his scholarship, Epsilon chapter of Phi Beta Kappa at the University of Southern California is very proud to honor Jacob Bongers. I would ask for some applause in absentia. And next, I want to recognize also Sarah Shahawi, who has maintained a perfect cumulative GPA of 4.0 and has been selected to serve as valedictorian of the class of 2011. She's a senior with double majors in biological sciences and French. Think about that combination. Sarah has received various awards, including the Presidential Scholarship, and was inducted into numerous honor societies in addition to Phi Beta Kappa, to which she was elected as a junior last year. Her scholarly and professional activities include numerous research projects and medical internships. Her desire to help others through medical service extends beyond American borders, as evidenced by her volunteer work at the Charity Center for Liver Disease at the Ain Shams University Specialized Hospital in Egypt. To further religious tolerance and mutual understanding here in the U.S., Sarah has also served as a member of the USC Interfaith Council and currently serves as president of that organization. for her academic achievements, research and volunteer activities, global engagement, and service to the USC community, Epsilon chapter of Phi Beta Kappa at the University of Southern California is very proud, and so I would ask that you stand. Now it's time for the formal initiation ceremony. We'll begin with a procession of candidates. So I'm going to ask, as your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated by Professor Montgomery and Professor Thalman. Hassan Abbas. You can tell me if I do something horrible to your name. Wakas Akmal. Is that okay?
No worries.
Emily Allen. Lisa Anderson. No. I messed up Lisa Anderson. I can't believe. Okay. Cordelia Artarian. Thank you. Natalie Bermudez. Jana Bernstein. Divya Bamidipati. Is that good? Sarah Boots. Dina Simone Buma. Kathleen Camarda. Evan Carbone. John Carley. Daniel Charnoff. Daniel Charnoff. Okay. Julia Cooperman. Christine Koraganko. How was that? Katenko, of course. Austin Corder. Ian Cox. Kelly Quen. Quan? Quen. Kelly Quen.
Yeah.
Sean Danino. Ana Karina de la Torre Fennell. Mackenzie Edwards. Juan Espinoza. Joshua Fishman. Mia Folick. Emily G. Mercy Goddard. Sylvia Green. Kaylin Gustafson. Is it Kaylin? Callan Gustafson, pardon me. Jill Hardy. William Heldfon. Michael Hergenrader. Andrena Hidalgo. Jenica Hill. Isaac Ho. Genevieve Hoffman. Are you Martin? Martin Hoddes. Alexander Hoffman. Andrew Hosea. Lauren Ige. Ige. Lauren Ige. Like a fox, I'm capable of learning as I go. Emmy Ito. Shay Jackson. Nicole Jaffe. Sarah Genevane, Joshua Giovanelli, Sarah Kanematsu, Jeannie Kane, Jason Kahe, K, Jason K, Gary Kung, Daniel Clayton, Elias Khan, Anna Korbakis, Kevin Kuwahara, Christiana Kiriakou. She was standing back there seeing how I would do. Michelle Lamb, Jennifer Lee, Jennifer Lee. That's not short-term memory loss. That's the second Jennifer Lee. Amber Lopez, Matthew Louis, Lauren Maldonado, Catherine Martyr. They're so good, they're like giving me thumbs up when I do it right. Mateo Marjoram, Pierre Martin, Anae Martinez, Jesse Mentz, Heidi Metler, Ashley Meyer, David Mikulka, Annalise Moberg, Catherine Moncrief, Kimberly Monks, Leilani Murakami, congratulations, Stephanie Nguyen, Cheryl Noda, Jackie Okoli, Noah Oldak Moradian, Brian O'Laughlin, Grace Petrash, Alexandra Piarino, Kevin Platt, Anna Price, David Resnick, Brian Rodesil, Mika Scheindlin, close? Micah Scheindlin. I had a friend named Mika. Micah. Erica Schnapps. I had a friend named Schnapps, too. Brianna Shumway. Leah Steiner. Jacqueline Stoddard. Is it Stoddard? Yeah. Jacqueline Stoddard. Patrick Strapazon. Carolyn Sundermeyer. Sarah Thurmond. Lauren Todoki. Lauren Todoki. Pavika Varma. Pavika Varma. Thank you. Pavika Varma. Devon Victoria. Kelsey Wang. Jasmine White. Morgan Williams. Hawa Wu. Marissa Worms. Grace Yang. Jeannie Zhang. Joshua Bussey. Sarah Edwards. Christina Rato. Is it Rato? Oh, you got it right. Christina Rato. I got it right. Christina Cheney. Thank you for your patience, Christina. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the inductees. There are some students who are not able to be here with us today, and their names appear in the program, so they will be there. To formalize this initiation, I will administer the pledge to all the initiates. So will all the initiates please rise? In accordance with the rules of the chapter, and in consequence of our good opinion of you, supported by your record of high attainment in the university, you have been selected as being worthy of becoming members of Phi Beta Kappa. Your names have been submitted to scrutiny and have met with our approval, and sometimes our good pronunciation. You have been formally notified of your election, and by your presence here, you signify your desire to be enrolled as members of this ancient and honorable society. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly promise that you will be true and faithful to the ideals of this society as you've heard them described, and that in any election of future members in which you might participate, you will have paramount regard for these ideals? Please respond by saying, I do so promise. I do so promise. Congratulations, you are now collectively members of Phi Beta Kappa. Please be seated. Let me say that it is a pleasure to read your names and to see the diversity of names. I think it's a reflection of where USC is going within our culture and internationally, and I think it's a lovely thing, and I think it's probably, each one of you would say, it's part of your education too, is what you learn from each other. When you came here to USC, we had very high hopes for you. In a sense, those hopes were that you might discover what we discovered when we made our ways through the furtive maze of a college experience. It is the hope that you would come to love learning in the liberal arts, and that you would become part of a great conversation that goes on between peoples at different times and different places, through literature, art, science, through all types of political and historical treatises, the works that we read, alone, that confirm that we're not alone. Isn't that why we read? They confirm that we're joined to many. Put another way, it's that many things change, more things don't. There is something permanent. You've learned here at USC and in the liberal arts, what you've learned here at USC and in the liberal arts will stay with you, and you will stay with them, and they will remain part of this culture. Many things change, most things don't. Cherish both, we say. Today is a fulfillment of our hopes, not because we think that you'll read what we read or interpret things as we do, but because you will interpret them differently, uniquely, as is your obligation and your gift, to enrich and be enriched by that tradition. To borrow a phrase from Thomas Jefferson, which he used in describing the place of small landowning farmers in the early American Republic, the liberal arts and sciences are the most precious part of the university. To be part of that tradition is an achievement of which you are now a part yourselves, and this gives us great joy. So we congratulate the initiates, their parents, families, and friends. And now we close our formal proceeding and invite everyone to share in conversation and refreshments. On behalf of the Phi Beta Kappa Board and the Dana and David Dornsife College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, thank you all for joining in this afternoon celebration. Good evening.